touched on a story involving Mike Epps previously on the channel. I certainly can attest that he has not graduated to friend of the channel status, but this might be his first step towards being able to earn that particular distinction. So Mike Epps was recently on the Breakfast Club, and he expressed how he was glad that there were cuts with the SNAP food grant programs and all of that in lieu of the government shutdown. He was talking about how he was glad that that happened because these entitlement programs don't exactly lead to healthy habits for many of us in our community, and we're best suited if we have less of them available to us. I thought that these were interesting comments. So this says Mike Epps says he's actually glad food stamps were cut. Mike Epps has said he's glad there's been a pause on food stamps, and he's taken some time to explain why. During a recent appearance on The Breakfast Club, the 54-year-old comedian argued that government aid might be quietly harming the very people they're meant to help. I told people when these food stamps and stuff get cut off, don't worry about that. See, black people, we've been getting our stuff cut off. We've been getting our doors kicked in and stuff. This is not for us. So don't take this as personal about the food stamps and all that. I'm actually glad they're cutting some of these N words off food stamps because some of us need to not be on food stamps because it's a trickle down effect. Epps argued that the issue wasn't just about losing benefits, but about how reliance on them can fuel unhealthy habits. You get the food stamps, then you go buy the food that gives you cancer, then you eat the food that gives you cancer, and then you're sad, you're walking around here upset, your diet's effed up. Now, I'm going to tell you some honest God truth. Your diet done sent a lot of N words to prison. When Charlemagne the God joked about Epps' comments would end up on, when Charlemagne the God joked that Epps' comments would end up on Fox News and lead to people calling him MAGA Mike, Epps brushed it off. No, they can't say that about me. See, that's one thing about me and Lil Boosie Badass. We can't be canceled. As Charlemagne laughed and predicted future backlash, Epps shot back saying, F the internet. And everybody out there that think they want to be mad and say something, F you, man. The interview aired amid national news about the federal government restoring supplemental nutrition assistance program benefits following the end of the longest government shutdown in U.S. history. According to CBS News, President Trump signed a bill on Wednesday, which was November 12th, to fund SNAP through September 2026, reinstating aid for nearly 42 million Americans. States that were told benefits would resume within 24 hours after the shutdown ended, though the timing was expected to vary. So I'm not going to sift through the video because they didn't cut that particular clip of him saying that, and I'm not trying to find the whole interview. But be that as it may, Mike Epps making some interesting comments about food stamps and the unhealthy habits that come along with having access to some of these various government-funded programs, which are paid for, of course, by the way, by you and I and everybody else who pays taxes around here. So, yeah, what did you think of what Mike Epps had to say there?
I agree, man. I agree with the statement. Magadogon, right? Nah, man, I agree, bro. Like, it. Let me start. Let me start with this. So, Mike Epps, his brand, okay, his brand is the trenches, okay. His brand is having people that are on government assistance attending his shows. They probably use some of their cash relief, okay, to buy some of his tickets. I'm sure that has happened in the scope of his career.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mike Epps, he's speaking from a situation where although he has been on for a while now, I think he's in tune with people who live that lifestyle. Um, and I think he has seen either in his own personal life, people attending the shows, or just that whole vibe of being in that energy set, that people that are accepting these assistants um, rely on them too heavily. You know, I've met people who were generational users. You know, their grandma was on them, their mama was on them. Now they're on them with their kids. Um, and the wonky part about it is, in order to qualify for these things, you have to qualify for them, either with income or the way you're living. You know, situations like that. You know, being a single mom or whatever. Like, you have to qualify for these things. And myself personally, when I used to, because I had some when I was in college, and man, I couldn't wait for them things to drop. But then I found myself in this situation of, because I did have a part time job, so I was a part time worker, part time student, you know, and then getting food stamps. And I found myself in this situation whenever I had to report the renew or whatever. Should I work more hours to make more money? But if I work more hours to make more money, I'm going to get less food. But the catch was, even if I worked more hours, it wasn't going to be enough to pay for rent and food. So I had to not work as many hours so I can qualify for stamps. I had to play this game every
Mhm.
cycle. And so for people that are on these, you know, assistance type of things, especially the generational ones, they have this fixed mindset of, well, I can't do that, I won't qualify for this. Or I can't go do this, I won't qualify for that. And it creates a ceiling for a lot of these people, which creates the generational roll on and stuff like that. Now, if there was people that was using it to just supplement their life, like me, and I'm sure millions of others people, all right, who just use it, get off of it when they don't need it anymore, you know, that's one thing. But the issue about this is the systemic use of it, and the way that it again creates that ceiling of mentality as a person. And to also speak on his point of, you know, the types of food that people choose to buy. If you got stamps, you can buy some pretty good stuff, but you know, um, some people choose to not buy the best types of things.
Well, I would say that there's a correlation between the person who's on that and
The
you know
food
the
choices
like.
they make.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think there is a correlation there.
I would say so as well. And also, if people want to get into because there's research and stuff out there where, you know, food deserts and other things in some of these areas. So, but to speak on that point, where he's saying that the food that people are eating is getting them cancers, making them depressed, and amongst other things, it's like, yeah, man, you know, you're eating these cocktails of chemicals, and uh that doesn't help the mentality of a person that's trying to either get out of that circumstance or whatever. So it is a perpetual cycle that feeds on itself, no pun intended. So if a lot of these people had some of this stuff removed, um they would be forced uh to get on the good foot and you know, go get it another way. But unfortunately, I know there's a lot of other people that are been generational users that would not get on the good foot, okay, and do other things. Because I saw videos online of people literally, you know, saying that they're going to start robbing people. You know, not actual people yet. They were talking about the grocery stores. Like, you're not going to stop me from walking out the store and feed my baby. Like, those people actually posting that online. So, overall, I think there needs to be a mentality shift. Mike saying this is not popular. All right, this is not going to go over well with his fan base and the internet. But I think that uh, as a community, you know, we need to look at alternatives on getting ourselves out of these situations that we claim that we don't like being in anymore. And one of those things is relying on the same system that you claim that oppresses you to feed you. But what are your thoughts, man, on Mike Epps saying that he was glad that government assistance got cut off? Maybe people will get on the good foot. What are your thoughts, man?
It's not a popular opinion, and understandably so, because underprivileged people need to be able to feed themselves and their families. So I
Right.
get that. And so, what are you supposed to do? People who can't afford to comfortably buy food, especially with the rising costs of everything. Um, how can you be a proponent of, if not all out, if not getting rid of altogether, changing the way that these various things are distributed to create more of a way for people to be able to wean themselves off of it? It's an unpopular opinion, and I agree with you in that a lot of this is generational. I know people who, the issue is there's a growing segment that of an already established population of people who rely on these various programs, who do in fact have the means
Mm-hmm.
to not need them,
Mm-hmm.
but out of convenience still choose to manufacture ways to be able to still use them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Mike Epps is speaking to that particular group of the population, not
Mm-hmm.
not the ones who are so disenfranchised and destitute that there's an actual need for a reliance on them.
Mm-hmm.
Rather, the people who represent that larger pool of folks who could, if they wanted to, create pathways to be able to not have to need it, but choose to mire in situations purposefully in order to still get the entitlements and everything anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is something that people are exercising into perpetuity, um, because they want to. And it's a part. I do believe that when you're growing up in an environment in which that's what you observe, you're likely going to repeat that step. You're likely going to repeat that behavioral set and just kind of rehash that same process and basically do the same thing over and over again, thus begetting the generational curse. Because then those individuals have children, and the likelihood is the same thing is going to happen again. So I agree with Mike Evans. There does need to be less of a reliance on this stuff, because I do believe that there's a correlation between the types of consumer choices that people on these programs make and the fact that they need to be on these programs. I believe there's a connection there. I don't think that that is random. I don't believe in random. I think there's a reason for everything. And I do believe that that connection speaks to the things that he talked about with respect to the types of foods you're putting in your body, your nutritional habits, the growing instances of, things like cancer. And it's not just that, it's also things like infertility. What else? Mental, what's the word? Like special needs, like the percentage wise, the rise in children being born who need special needs due to various cognitive impairments and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff has to be linked to some of these things that we're putting in our body as a result of what we're buying. And I think there's a correlation between what you choose to buy and being on these various programs. So I think he's right. I don't have the solution, of course, but I think that he's right when he talks about there needs to be less of a reliance on these programs, because in the short term, it's acceptable because they do provide you with the ability to be able to buy the foods and buy the things that you need for sustenance if you are in need of that. But in the long term, I do believe that it's a cost, and it's adversely affecting particular communities because socioeconomically, statistically, um, there's a greater percentage of certain groups who are going to rely on these various things more so than others. So it has an adverse effect on certain groups more than others. And as we continue to learn more about the long-term effects of certain food groups and things of that nature, um, we're going to learn from a concrete standpoint what those results are. But in the interim, I think that it is having somewhat of a detrimental effect. So there's a give and take there. I don't know what the happy medium is between people weaning themselves off of this stuff and still being able to provide these things for people who truly are in need. But I think the greater overall issue is people who do maintain the wherewithal to not need them, but get them anyway, because it just makes things easier for them, creating various other bad habits, in my opinion, that last into perpetuity. So that's the magic Rubik's cube that needs to be solved, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's the level of dependency that that bothered me over the years. Once I saw the effects that it was having, um, and particularly when I was coming of age as a man in Tallahassee, um, and I would meet people um, that are in that situation, and there was no sense of urgency to get out. It was what it was. Um, you know, Section 8, food stamps, WIC, they were getting it all. And the turn up was still real for them. All right. They weren't going to not turn up. They weren't going to not do recreationals. Um, you know what I'm saying? Now, I was hanging out with them because I was turning up, right, and all that other stuff. And um, but I saw the situation that they were in. And I was like, damn, man, like you won't have to live like this. But it was one of those things of that's what they knew. They mama was doing it, and everybody else in that neighborhood and everything else was already on it. It was what it was. And when I worked at Walmart, it was the same kinds of and this ain't no shade, man. It was just what I was seeing. It was the same kinds of people, like moms. Same kinds of food in the cart. Whenever the stamps read up, sugary cereals, this and that, and other things. You know what I'm saying? It was just the same old stuff, and it was just like, hey, man, like we don't have to do it like this. And so that's when I started to think about it as, hey, maybe this isn't so helpful. And then, of course, me attending an HBCU and them speaking about the various ways that our community is impacted, and they talked about programs like Section 8, programs like food stamps and other government assistance programs that got introduced after civil rights. Um, that statistically, all right, this isn't just things that I observed or how I feel. I mean, everybody can look at the statistics of marriages in our community, uh, you know, um, family, economic status. There's so many things that got impacted once these government programs became readily available. And so they have had a negative impact, if you ask me, over the years. Now, granted, there's a lot of people that made it out, and there's a lot of people that was eating water sandwiches if they when they didn't have those stamps. I get that, but at the same time, when you're dealing with a narcissist, an abusive person, their main operation in order to get you to get in online with their program is for you to be dependent on them. And this system, if you ask me, is predicated on growing that dependence on them. And because at that point, you're under control, and you can be either broken or anything else due to that level of dependence on whatever. And so I don't like to position myself in a level of dependence on anything uh, and anyone. I like to be somebody that controls their own destiny. Um, I better win this game right now is my mentality, so I can control my destiny and make it to the playoffs and the championship. I don't want to have to depend on other teams and some weird domino effect later on where my fate is now in the balance. I don't care for that. It never feels good. And when you're on these programs, that's your constant state. It's a constant state of anxiety and other things. I mean, I wish there were measurables on some of this stuff, that some of these cycles that these people go through when their stamps run out, and then when they get them back, and all this other stuff. Like, there's a whole psychological impact of living in that cycle as well. So yeah, these are all things that I'm not in favor for. As you said, what's the happy medium? I'm not trying to dunk on people. It's just a thing where it's like a lot of people just grew up into this thinking that that was normal. But I'm here to say that maybe uh, this system that we all came up growing up and thinking was normal is something that is actually uh, crippling the people versus actually helping. So yeah, man, it's not it's a touchy subject. It's a nuanced conversation, and I'm definitely not out here being a wild person, because trust me, I've had these conversations amongst my family. Just talking in general. Hey, they're gonna cut this, they're gonna cut that. I'm like, we don't need it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and then what you mean we don't need? Who do you? Are you orange, man? I'm not orange, bro. All right, but at the same time, man, it's like something's got to give. If we want to sit here annually and complain about our plights, then something has to give in order for us to not be in those situations anymore. And I think this is one of those components that add to our standings right now. So my personal opinion, and yeah, and like you, last thing I say, like you, I'm not talking about it in a situation where it's like, hey man, times is rough, you in between jobs or something crazy. These prices for foods is not a joke. You do need help here or there. Like, I'm not talking about that, because that's not that person's baseline of, I'm just gonna live like this for the rest of my life. If you need assistance in a spot, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the perpetual use and abuse, if you ask me. But yeah, man, that's my thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's conversations like this that exemplifies why I never really engage myself too heavily with matters of conspiracy. It's because I feel like the greatest, most effective, targeted, weaponized systems of control are directly in front of people, and we willfully participate in them without being forced to. So there's really no need for me to be too preoccupied with conspiratorial stuff, because we're active participants in our various conspiracies already. Like I'm not overly concerned with whether Nipsey Hussle was taken out by the government. You know what I'm saying? Like, why do I care about that when we get on these programs provided by the same people, the same entities, the same organizations, the same state sponsored and federal sponsored programs to go to Walmart and buy fruits out of season and vegetables from weird places. Uh, you know, GMO produced food products, and eggs that are laid by chickens that are eating corn all day, not free range chickens and things of that nature. What are the long term ramifications of all that stuff? There's already suspicion that a lot of these things that we're consuming do lead to long term, health issues, things like cancer or infertility, the likelihood that you're going to have issues giving birth, miscarriages, or children being born with cognitive impairments. The links between these various things and the foods that we're eating are actively being researched. But is there a possibility that there is a said link? Absolutely. And we're all still going to Walmart in droves and spending this money. We're still buying these things. We're still on these programs, spending this money on these same things. You bought a bunch of bananas lately and noticed that in 2 or 3 days they go from being dark green to brown. It's not natural. It's not normal. That is not the typical lifespan of a banana that was naturally grown. But we're buying it in all of the produce sections of these various grocery stores, including the places that are supposed to be giving us the good stuff,
Yeah,
the whole
exactly.
the Whole Foods and Trader Joe's of the world. So that's my whole thing. Is like, did this artist really drown in the bathtub, or was there something else going on? I don't know. Was Kobe Bryant's helicopter crash really the result of pilot error, or did somebody sabotage the helicopter? I don't
Sabotage.
I don't know. Like, was Nipsey Hussle actually shot by some jealous dude in the hood named Eric Holder, or was it them who took him out? Whoever they are, whoever them is. Hell if I know, but I know that y'all are still spending 8 to 10 hours a day on Instagram feeding data to these tech companies who are then going to turn around and sell that information to whomever is willing to pay the highest price. Y'all are still giving all this data willingly to these various tech companies who are running the world, and then they're going to use that information to create AI and all these various applications that you will then turn around and complain about. Well, you fed them the data to actually have the insight to be able to do these things in the first place. You know, we complain about all of these things under the sun, but we'll take these SNAP benefits and these food stamps, and we'll go to Walmart and head to the juice aisle and buy a gallon of Hawaiian Punch. To me, it
which
doesn't make
which never gets cold, by the way.
and it doesn't need to be cold. Like, sugary juices laced with high fructose corn syrup that don't require refrigeration. And we're drinking this stuff. And it doesn't cease to amaze me that in 2025, despite all of the evidence that is out there readily at your fingertips, you can hop on Google, you can hop on Wikipedia, it doesn't matter. There's all of this evidence out there. Yet despite all of that, I can in 2025 get in my car and drive to the McDonald's across the street and see a line of cars wrapped
It's
around the
packed,
building.
bro. The McDonald's by my house is packed every day.
Yeah, wrapped around the building.
Yeah.
So my whole thing is, are all of these things happening? Maybe. The hell if I know. But I personally, and this is just my personal opinion,
Mhm.
I don't choose to get too snuffed about that stuff because I'm looking at all of these other things happening right before my very eyes. And there's far more people actively participating in all of those various systems of control. And yes, you can lump the foods in with it, the social media usage, the reliance on all of these various devices. It's all the same. You know, go education. You don't think graduating with $20,000 in student loan debt is a system of control? Of course it is. 50 racks, 100 racks. And look, I'm not high and mighty. I'm one of those individuals who graduated from college with a substantial amount of student loan debt. My student loan debt is actively prohibiting me from being able to get a good loan on a house so that I can own something with some equity and pay a mortgage. And I refuse to pay rent because you're literally throwing money away doing that. So these are all various systems of control. What program am I going to need to be reliant upon in order for me to be able to have the chance to minimize the impact that my student loan debt, another system of control, is having with respect to me being able to actually be a homeowner?
Mhm.
And these are all various systems that we are willful participants in. So those things, to me, in my opinion, are the greatest conspiracies going on because they're not even being hidden or concealed. They're right in front of us. And that's just my personal opinion on that. I'm not trying to say that that's right or wrong. It just is what it is as far as I'm concerned. So I do think there needs to be a shift in terms of mentality for sure. When or how will it take place? I'm not exactly sure. And I don't know how you can reconcile the need for the existence of these various programs with the fact that people need to be more educated on some of the constructive ways to not need them, because there's more education on that front that's needed. You don't actually need to have the if I could go back now and do college all over again, the night and day drastic difference between the way I did it and the way I would do it, given what I know now, is incomprehensible. I would graduate with a master's degree with no student loan debt, and the world would be my oyster at this point. But I think that this country relies upon people being in a perpetual state of debt so that you can then rely on the various tools and systems that they are willing to give you so that you can try to get out of that particular form of bondage. But you're just willfully offering yourself up. for another system of bondage. So I think the food is a part of that, which is why I think these comments by Mike Epps are apropos. Um, Depending on your particular perspective, it kind of determines, how impactful the food aspect of this particular conversation is having with you individually. But I do think it's all working in concert. And I don't think that you can summarily dismiss one element, because I think all elements are actively working simultaneously to sequester people into various pockets of class and income power and purchasing power and all this other stuff, literally controlling what people can and cannot do.
Yeah, bro. Hey, well said, bro. So you just explained the grand conspiracy, bro. That is the grand conspiracy, bro. That's literally what the Matrix is. You just described the Matrix. So getting involved and getting into the weeds within one conspiracy is for me is fun. But if it's a situation where it's just like, hey, well, there's all these other systems and all this other stuff, and you're still gonna go to McDonald's, and it's like, yeah, all of that's like that's the game. And the game is, and the conspiracy is the Matrix, and the agents that continue to prop it up and introduce new variables into the Matrix to get more people trapped on more systems of control. So yeah, man, that's what's going on. The answer, the answer is to unplug yourself from the power grid. And we talk about not being on the grid in terms of relationships are concerned, but when it comes to this whole game, this whole racket that everybody's out here feeling like they're forced to play, you got to unplug from that. So you are eating foods within season. You're not eating stuff from these conspiracy groceries. These grocery stores are conspiracy. As you mentioned, Trader Joe's and Whole Foods. Like Whole Foods spray all their stuff with wax. Like they little stuff where you go get your kale and all that stuff where they're constantly it's got suds in it. You wash it off at the house and you put it on the cutting board, suds coming out of it. Yeah, it's like, what are these suds? It's probably some solution that they're spraying, because it's not water, it's a solution. Solution to what problem? So this stuff is going on everywhere. So the whole college system, the whole education system, everything, you name it. So yeah, government assistance, these stores, the medical field, and you name it, everything is compromised, if you ask me. And it's predicated on a system of capitalism, which is predicated on a system of cattle, of slaves and workers to feed upper class people. And this is where those AI conversations become more, prevalent, or more relevant, is in the context of they're soon they're not going to need us to prop up their system anymore, because they're going to have bots doing it. And so that whole situation of well, that's why the food is killing people. Yeah, it's going to be crazy to put people in gas chambers, so have them kill themselves.
Yeah.
So that's what this system is. Food is horrendous right now. This is the worst food has ever been, and it only gets worse every month. And I made it I talked about it a couple weeks ago when I just went to Zaxby's. I probably heard one too many ads during football. And I went and I ate one of them things, one of them little tenders, and I was like, this ain't chicken.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's been places you've gone and you done ate it and whatever, and you're like, this ain't whatever this is supposed to be.
Man, this stuff none of this stuff is real. Like I've been alive long enough that I've been able to see the transition. Yes. I've been able to see even junk food. I've been able to see things change in size.
Yeah.
I've been able to see, you used to be able to buy a cheesecake and it was a certain circumference, and now you go and buy the exact same thing and it looks different. It's more off-white and it's smaller. Like, what is there to explain why fundamentally, in terms of the various, down to a cellular level, it's different. It shouldn't be that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not supposed to happen like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's because whatever process they've used to manufacture this stuff has changed over the years for the purposes of efficiency and cost cutting.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason why. But the point is, it's manufactured.
Correct. Correct.
It's not something that you're natural. It's not a natural thing that you're consuming.
No,
It's a
not anymore.
man-made manufacture. It's man-made and manufactured. Like,
What?
this is one of those areas where being older gives you a unique perspective
Yeah.
because you can see the way things have changed over time.
Yes. And it's been a lot more rapid too within the last decade. I mean, it's very aggressive. And even the whole thing of, oh, I'm eating plant-based. It's a plant-based, blah, 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 blah. And somebody had said something, of course, internet person, but somebody had said something, and I take it with me. So whenever I hear plant-based, that means it was made in a plant, made in a factory. It's plant-based. It's not made from whatever plant you think.
Yeah, it didn't grow out the ground, right?
You're eating a chemistry set. So everything, bro, it's all inception, and it's all of these things. So what's the best course of action? Hey guys, I go to Whole Foods too, y'all. So I'm not above this. All right. But the fact remains is that the things that we have been noticing, whether it was food or anything else, where things are just strange, and it's moving in a direction that you don't think is good for the culture of humanity. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, whatever entities that are controlling this thing, that's the they everybody talks about. I don't know who they are, but that's the they. When people say they,
Yeah.
it's like, well, what they? Nobody's making you go to McDonald's. It's like, I know, but you know what I'm saying? The they is behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
They is what made you go to Zaxby's that day.
They did. They got my ass. What me, dog? Like, if I had told you I went to Zaxby's, even now he's saying, like,
I wouldn't believe it. I wouldn't believe it.
I don't watch way too many college football things. I might be drinking a Dr. Pepper soon, y'all. Look out. Yeah, bro. So at the end of the day, man, hey, man, I'm not above this. Okay. I just think that snaps and all of that stuff is one of those systems, as you were saying.
It is, yes.
And it got people in a spell. And basically what Epps was saying was like, it being removed for some people, it would help break that spell, but some people are so far gone that they would turn up and flip over the store. So I was in a place too. I was kind of happy about it, but then also a little concerned, So, but yeah, man, it's one of those things, bro. It's not an easy thing, but something's got to give. But yeah, man, I agree, bro. I agree with you.
Yeah. Shouts out to King Hercules on the chat. He said, "True that."
Yeah,
so yeah, man. You probably done seen the shift when it comes to these weird things too, bro.
Yeah, bro.
It's not a game, man. And I don't want to take anyone's right to engage in conspiracy theories away from them, because like I said, I don't know what's real and what's not. And the likelihood that there's merit to a substantial amount of that stuff is reasonable to believe. But I also think that the bigger fish is the stuff right in front of us. And I kind of feel like we're eating the biggest conspiracies are what we're eating. And the fact that we're on these devices, sending these data to these tech companies all day, and the fact that we're getting in these debts with these these loan officers, these credit unions, and these banks, high interest rate credit cards, financing iPhones and all of this other weird stuff that we're doing. All of that stuff is a part of it, and that's right. And they ain't even trying to hide that. They're giving it to us, and we're just taking it. So that's my whole thing with that.
Yeah, man. Hey, y'all be safe out there, y'all. And shout out to Mike Epps, man. Mike Epps is a little polarizing for some people. Me personally, I think he's hilarious. So shout out to Mike Epps, man.
Yeah.